Blood-curdling war cries tore from the throats of 10,000 human soldiers as they marched through the battered streets, plasma rifles raised to the smog-choked purple skies of Rigel 7. Lieutenant Commander Lewis Davis stood rigidly at attention, eyes fixed straight ahead, unwavering under the withering, panic-stricken gazes of the Tellarite High Council. Minutes earlier, Davis had been locked in a furious debate in the council chamber. The insectoid councillors bickered and droned, mandibles clicking, voices buzzing with fear over the recent Zorgan Empire incursions. Some wanted to beg for peace, others counselled appeasement, offering up border worlds to satiate the Zorgon's hunger. None wanted to fight. Councillors, the Zorgons only understand one language: force. Davis had bellowed, slamming an armoured fist on the crystalline podium. We hit them back now and hit them hard, or they roll right over you. Cygnus, the council leader, had fixed Davis with a multifaceted glare. You brutish humans always resort to violence. This requires delicate diplomacy, finesse, tact, not bombs and guns. Now Davis watched his troops roar past in perfect unison, thudding boots shaking the alien earth, electrified bayonets glinting. Cygnus trembled, shrinking back from the reinforced windows. Davis allowed himself a grim smile. The Tellarites, like most Xenos, couldn't comprehend the human predilection for organized warfare. To aliens, human armies were horrifically, incomprehensibly disciplined, rigidly cohesive, unbreakable, unstoppable, honed into a singular organism dedicated to one purpose: victory. Too many extraterrestrial civilizations, even advanced ones, fell to squabbling and division when pressed by external foes. As he watched his defiant soldiers march past, Davis knew that without human military might, the fractious Galactic Alliance would collapse under the ruthless Zorgan onslaught. As humanity's sole representative, he had to find a way to steel the Alliance species for the storm to come, or the Zorgans would grind them all to dust under their empire's jagged, bloody boot heels. A high-pitched alarm jolted Davis and the Tellarite councillors out of their arguments. On the main view screen, a haggard-looking Tellarite officer flickered into view, his carapace cracked and oozing green ichor. "Councillors, the Zorgans, they've crossed the neutral zone. Our scout ship, the Zixler, attacked without warning, utterly destroyed. No survivors. They're coming in force." Pandemonium erupted in the council chamber. Insectoid limbs flailed wildly as the councillors screeched and buzzed, some calling for immediate retaliation, others pleading for restraint and diplomacy. Davis's wrist communicator beeped. A text-only transmission scrolled across the tiny screen. "Top secret. Alliance Central Command, Lieutenant CMD Arvar Davis. 7th Fleet Battle Group en route your position. ETA 0800 local time. Fleet commanded by ADM Jameson. Diplomatic overture and joint military exercises with Tellarites approved. Advise you leverage fleet's arrival to bolster Tellarite resolve against Zorgans. Demonstrate human military superiority. Drive the point home. Command out." Davis straightened, a sudden plan taking shape. He slammed a fist on his podium, cutting through the chaos. "Councillors, my people have a battle fleet arriving soon, our most powerful ships and troops. I propose a military parade upon their arrival, a display of our weapons and soldiers. Show the Zorgans what they're up against if they dare threaten Rigel 7 further." Cygnus waved his antennae skeptically. "You would bring more of your barbaric warriors and weapons to our peaceful world? How does this help?" "It will give your people hope, reassurance, and send a clear message to the Zorgans that Rigel 7 does not stand alone." Cygnus conferred briefly with the other councillors, a low insectoid hum filling the chamber. Finally, he turned back to Davis. "Very well, human. We will allow your display, but we expect your fleet to depart swiftly afterwards. We Tellarites have no wish to be a staging ground for your ceaseless conflicts." Davis nodded. "Understood, Councillor." As the council session ended, Davis stepped into an anteroom and activated his subspace transceiver. The rugged face of Admiral Jameson materialized on the view screen. "Lieutenant Commander, I hear we're going to put on a little show for our invertebrate friends." Davis grinned. That's affirmative, Admiral, and let's make it one hell of a show. I want precision marching drills, live fire exercises, and a full aerospace display. Fighters, gunships, assault landers, the works. I want the Tellarites' mandibles hitting the floor and the Zorgons quaking in their exoskeletons. Jameson nodded, his grizzled face hardening. We'll give 'em a parade they won't soon forget. 7th Fleet out. As the screen went dark, Davis allowed himself a tight smile. The Tellarites were about to witness the full terrible majesty of human military power up close, and the Zorgons were about to learn that the human race would not stand idly by as their insatiable empire threatened the free species of the galaxy. Thousands of Tellarites thronged the main avenues and squares of the capital as the titanic human warships descended through the mauve skies, the bone-shaking roar of their engines rattling windows across the city. Davis stood ramrod straight on the grand balcony, his dress uniform immaculate, cap tucked under one arm. Beside him, Cygnus shifted his spindly weight from foot to foot, his antennae a-quiver with trepidation and anticipation. The crowd gasped and clicked as the first human troops emerged from their dropships, their powered armor gleaming under Rigel's twin suns. In perfect lockstep, a full battalion of Marines marched down the central boulevard, heavy boots thudding on the flagstones. Weapon barrels swung crisply to and fro, the troopers' faceless helmets seeming to stare down the awestruck crowds. The armor was followed by a phalanx of main battle tanks, their angular hulls bristling with plasma cannons and point defense turrets. Cygnus recoiled as the lead tank swiveled its main gun directly towards the balcony, the yawning barrel appearing to regard him like the unblinking eye of some mechanical leviathan. More armored fighting vehicles trundled past, their treads churning up clouds of dust that billowed over the stunned Tellarite spectators. Self-propelled artillery pieces brought up the rear, their long guns elevated to the heavens, a pointed reminder of humanity's potent reach. A strained hush fell over the crowds as Admiral Jameson's flagship, the Titan, materialized from the clouds, its immense shadow falling across entire city blocks. The dreadnought eclipsed the sun, its star-bright running lights glinting off its armored flanks. Cygnus gripped the balcony railing as the Titan came to a halt above the city's central plaza, the hammer of its engines buffeting the cowering Tellarites below. The relative silence was abruptly shattered by the piercing scream of a fighter wing as they thundered over the parade route, their anti-grav engines leaving shimmering contrails in their wake. The nimble craft wove through the skyline in an exquisite ballet of raw power and precision, their wingtip plasma cannons drawing dazzling arcs of light across the heavens. As suddenly as they appeared, the fighters rocketed into the clouds, the echoes of their passing still reverberating off the city's crystalline spires. Davis turned to Cygnus, allowing himself a tight smile. "This is just a small taste of what humanity can bring to the table, Counselor. With our strength added to yours, the Zorgons won't stand a chance." Cygnus's mandibles worked soundlessly for a moment before he managed a response. "Perhaps you're right, Commander Davis, but let us hope that this display of force will be enough to deter the Zorgons without the need for actual bloodshed." As the human fleet rose back into orbit and the Tellarite crowds began to disperse, Davis couldn't shake the nagging feeling that the Zorgons would not be so easily cowed. He had a sinking suspicion that today's martial pageantry, as impressive as it was, would not be enough to dissuade the ravenous Zorgon war machine. The real test of humanity's resolve and the strength of the Alliance was fast approaching. Tension hung heavy in the air as the Tellarite High Council reconvened, their insectoid faces etched with worry. Councillor Zorax slammed a spindly fist on the podium. "The humans have doomed us all. Their reckless display of military might has surely provoked the Zorgons beyond restraint." "Nonsense," Councillor Thrazik shot back. "The human show of force bought us precious time to bolster our borders and planetary defenses. We'd be fools not to seize this chance." As the debate raged on, Davis felt a light tap on his shoulder. He turned to see a robed Tellarite beckoning him into a shadowed alcove. Davis followed cautiously, one hand resting on his sidearm. "Commander Davis," the Tellarite whispered urgently, I am Zaxxon. My associates and I have dire news. Zaxxon's compound eyes darted furtively as he pressed a data chip into Davis's palm. Davis plugged it into his wrist computer, his blood running cold as the contents scrolled across the screen. By the gods, Davis breathed. Zaxxon's intel painted a chilling picture. A colossal Zorgan warfleet massing on the Alliance frontier, armed with devastating weapons beyond anything Davis had ever seen. Advanced plasma cannons, impenetrable energy shielding, swarms of attack drones that could strip a battleship to its skeleton in seconds. Davis's mind raced as he absorbed the implications. The Zorgons had been busy. While the Alliance bickered and postured, their foe had been arming for total conquest. The parade had likely just hastened their timetable. Zaxxon melted back into the shadows as Davis strode purposefully out of the council chamber, the shouts of the squabbling Tellarites fading behind him. He keyed Admiral Jameson's private comcode on his wrist computer. The Admiral's grizzled face materialized instantly. "Davis, you look like you've seen a ghost." "Worse. I need a full spread of recon flights along the Zorgon border immediately. Cloaked ships, long-range scans, everything we've got. We're flying blind here." Jameson nodded grimly. "I'll scramble the scout ships myself. If the bugs are up to something, we'll sniff it out." The next few hours crawled by with agonizing slowness as Davis paced the halls, waiting for word from the recon missions. When his comlink finally chirped, he answered before the first beep finished. "Report." An ashen-faced intelligence officer filled the screen. "Sir, you need to see this." Davis's heart sank as the images played across his computer. Uncloaked by the human stealth ship's advanced sensors, the true scale of the Zorgan war machine stood revealed. Thousands of cruel, angular warships, poised like daggers, aimed at the heart of the Alliance. Troop transports packed with millions of Zorgan shock soldiers, straining at their moorings. Zaxxon's intel had barely scratched the surface. Davis steeled himself as he gathered the Tellarite counselors for an emergency briefing. He could see the fear in their eyes, the dread realization sinking in that their worst nightmares were coming true. Cygnus gripped the table with trembling claws as Davis laid out the grim situation. "Counselors," Davis began heavily, "the Zorgons are coming. Their fleet is larger and more powerful than we ever imagined, and they will not stop until every last world of the Alliance is ground beneath their heel." Davis let the weight of his words sink in before continuing. "The time has come for us to act, to strike first, strike hard, and show the Zorgons the terrible cost of their aggression. I propose—" Davis stood before the Tellarite High Council, his face grim. "Counselors, the Zorgon threat is imminent and overwhelming. Our only hope is a preemptive strike, hitting them before they hit us." Cygnus slammed a spindly fist on the podium. "Absolutely not. A surprise attack will only provoke them further." Other councillors buzzed and clicked in agreement, but many fell silent as Davis laid out the grim reality in meticulous detail, walking through the projected losses if the Zorgons struck first with their terrifying new armaments. One by one, mandibles twitched, and antennae drooped as the councillors realized the terrible necessity of the humans' plan. At last, the vote was called. It was close, but the ayes had it. The attack would proceed. As human and Tellarite ships mustered for the assault, a priority transmission chimed on Davis's wristcom. It was Zaxxon, his multifaceted eyes wide with urgency. "Commander, I've uncovered evidence of Zorgan infiltration at the highest levels of our government, and Councillor Cygnus, I believe he may be a Zorgan agent himself." Davis's blood ran cold. If true, Cygnus could sabotage the entire offensive. The councillor had to be contained immediately and quietly. Davis quickly assembled a crack squad of human commandos. They moved swiftly and silently through the halls of the council chambers, the thud of combat boots muffled by the thick carpets. They found Cygnus in his private offices, hunched over a glowing holo display. The councillor spun as the door exploded inward, Davis and his troops pouring through the breach. "What is the meaning of this?" Cygnus screeched, even as his claw darted for a hidden panel on his desk. Davis was faster. He lunged, grappling the insectoid in a tangle of limbs and carapace. They crashed over the desk, scattering parchment and data slates. Cygnus was surprisingly strong for his wiry frame, but Davis's combat training proved the decisive edge. After a brief, furious struggle, he wrenched the counselor's arms behind his thorax, snapping on a pair of phase shackles. "Counselor Cygnus, you are under arrest for treason and conspiracy against the Tellarite Regency," Davis panted, hauling the counselor upright. Cygnus clacked his mandibles in defiance, but the fight seemed to drain out of him, as Davis marched him before the assembled counselors, presenting the evidence of his duplicity. With the traitor exposed and contained, the combined human and Tellarite fleet plunged into warp, hurtling toward the massing Zorgon armada. They emerged from superluminal space with guns blazing, torpedoes and plasma charges ripping into the serried Zorgon ranks. The Zorgons reeled under the unexpected onslaught, their formation fracturing as the Alliance ships pressed the attack. But the enemy recovered with startling speed, their ships suddenly shimmering with flaring energy shields as they snapped into new attack vectors. Brilliant lances of plasma sleeted from the Zorgon fleet, scything through the Alliance vanguard. Tellarite and human ships alike shattered under the onslaught, broken hulls spinning into the void. On the bridge of his flagship, Davis clung to a sparking railing as the deck bucked beneath him. Damage reports flooded in, each more dire than the last. The Zorgon weapons were hideously effective, their shields shrugging off all but the most concentrated fire. "Admiral Jameson," Davis shouted into the flickering view screen, "we need a game-changer now. We can't take much more of this." Jameson's expression was grim, the bridge of her dreadnought, the Titan wreathed in acrid smoke behind her. "I have an idea, Commander, but you're not going to like it." The Admiral quickly outlined her desperate ploy. Davis felt his stomach lurch as the sheer risk and enormity of it sank in. But as his eyes flicked over the tactical display, the sea of angry red Zorgon markers threatening to engulf the dwindling Alliance blue, he knew they had no choice. "Do it, Admiral. Godspeed." Jameson nodded curtly, signing off. Moments later, the Titan wrenched out of formation, plunging through the maelstrom of fire towards the heart of the Zorgon fleet. Zorgon ships swarmed to meet it, stabbing at the massive dreadnought with searing beams. But the Titan didn't slow, shrugging off the blows as it ploughed forward. It was aiming, Davis suddenly realized with a lurch of nausea, for the enormous Zorgon command ship. The Titan's prow crumpled as it slammed into the command ship's shields at full speed, a titanic eruption of energy flaring at the impact point. The dreadnought ground forward, the energy field sputtering and flickering. Then, with a soundless flash, the Zorgon shields collapsed. The Titan, trailing debris and venting atmosphere from 100 rents in its hull, rammed forward, burying its prow deep in the command ship's flank. A second sun blazed to life as the Titan's overloading reactors detonated, the explosion utterly consuming the Zorgon flagship and a dozen nearby ships. The Zorgon fleet reeled, suddenly directionless. Davis felt a pang of anguish for Jameson's sacrifice, even as he bellowed orders to the remaining Alliance ships to press the momentary advantage. Wave after wave of human and Tellarite ships surged forward, ruthlessly hammering the disoriented Zorgons. After a vicious exchange of fire, the Zorgon fleet at last broke, fleeing into warp. A ragged cheer rang out across the human and Tellarite comms as the last enemy marker winked out on the tactical displays. But as Davis slumped back in his command chair, he felt only exhaustion and a grim sense of foreboding. The Battle of Rigel was won, but the cost had been staggering. Jameson, his friend and mentor, was gone, along with thousands of brave human and Tellarite spacers, and the brief unity of the Alliance against the Zorgon threat was already fracturing in the face of Cygnus's revealed treachery, suspicion and recrimination flying between the counselors. As he watched the tattered Alliance fleet limp back towards Rigel 7, Davis knew their ordeal was far from over. The Zorgons would return, stronger and more implacable than ever, and the fragile coalition of humans, Tellarites, and the other Alliance races might not survive the next test. Davis gazed out at the stars, feeling the weight of the challenges ahead pressing down on him. But beneath the weariness and sorrow, a small, stubborn ember of determination still flickered. The Alliance had weathered its first great crucible. It would weather the next. Davis would make sure of it. For Jameson, for his fallen comrades, for all the beings of the galaxy who longed to live free of the Zorgan yoke. He straightened his uniform and strode towards the turbolift, already composing his report to Tellarite Command in his head. There was still much to do, but for now they had earned a moment of respite. The stars, cold and forbidding yet full of promise, beckoned as Davis plunged into the hard work of rebuilding all that had been broken. You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.